Okay, thanks everybody. I appreciate everybody showing up. Welcome. I'm John Boylan. I'm one of the co-chairs for the Legislative and Economic Development Committee for the Committee for Dulles. I share those responsibilities with Anita Grazer and Jack Vega. And I'd just like to welcome you and say thank you for joining us today. We'd like to introduce our president and first vice president for Peter and Brandon for being here. I'll get to Scott in a second. One of the things when you talk about the Dulles Airport, everybody talks about the economic engine. If you lift up that economic engine, the biggest piece under there is United. And we're fortunate today to talk about what United is and what they're doing and the future. But the economic development and legislative policies are one of the key elements of the success. And there's an offense and a defensive play. And so I invite you, if you're not already part of our committee, let Scott or I know, and we'll make sure we get you on the mailing list, because we need to get the whole community involved. It doesn't just happen. We have to figure out how to do this and work together about the future. I just drove in today listening to 99.1 Bloomberg, and they were talking on the radio. It's all about economic development and legislative policies, right? So it's about the things like the airport, right? You don't get the Dulles, the Silver Line out there. You don't worry about the issues with the toll road. Look at expanding of the territory, what the transportation issues are. It happens because of us helping foster those positions, working with MWA to figure out the future and where we're going to be. And we're so lucky as a committee for Dulles to have a leader like Scott York. Scott is not only talks about economic development, talks about legislation, he's actually done it. So it's my honor to introduce our leader, Scott.
Thank you, John, and thank you, everyone, for coming out this morning and being with us at this committee meeting. I'm just going to be a little shameful here as executive director, and if I can get this thing to work. Technology was great when it worked. Yeah, pointing it at the computer. Much better. Okay. There we go. All right. There. Okay. That's what happens when he gets up early in the morning. All right. So we have 3 upcoming events, which you're all invited to attend. Next week, on April 20th, we have the 23 Sustainable Infrastructure webinar. And then on the 24th of April, we have our, actually it'll be the 3rd annual golf tournament at the Westfield Golf Club. And then we have coming up in June 29th will be our next luncheon series, and this is with Jack Potter. It's up here very early, and that is because we are selling tickets, and there is an early bird special for everybody to take advantage of in pre-registration. All events can be found on committeeforDulles.org, and I hope that we'll see you out in the future. Now, last month, I want to take a little point of personal privilege. Last month, my wife and I had the opportunity to go to Japan. We visited our youngest daughter in Yokohama. And during that visit, we went to Hiroshima and Kyoto and a few other places. Enjoyed not only the sights, but a whole heck of a lot of food. But the important reason we went was to visit and meet our 14th grandchild. Now, number 14. Number 15 comes next month. So we're growing in an international family. This is our Jag child, a Japanese American grandkid. So anyway, the point of this is that we were able to get there via United Airlines. United Airlines has been our airline of choice. and they have provided us with good service. We had a great flight to and from Japan. And we are certainly delighted as a committee for Dulles that United is a member of CFD. But my former hat as chairman of Loudoun County, we were grateful that United was out at Dulles and utilizing Dulles as a hub. They're very important to us, so we are grateful to have Tom Michels here. Tom Michels is the United's Government Affairs representative in DC, where he joined the team in 2018. Previously, Tom worked at Blue Water Strategies, a DC-based government affairs and business consultancy, focused on energy and environmental issues, and served as executive director of the One Future Coalition, a coalition of natural gas companies focused on reducing their methane emissions. Prior to that, Tom was a senior advisor in Royal Dutch Shell's Washington's office. Prior roles included serving as legislative director to a U.S. senator and worked with 2 trade associations. Tom earned an MA in International Relations from the University of Chicago and a BA in Philosophy from LaSalle University in Philadelphia. So I'm going to bring Tom up here now, and just so you know, we're going to go through Tom's presentation, and we'll open it up to Q&A, where I hope you all will participate. With that, please welcome Tom Michels.
Thank you very much, Scott. I know now what I should have put into my presentation, because I cannot compete with those baby pictures. It's definitely unfair, and I know what I don't want to follow next. But I tried to print out my notes, and my printer ran out of paper, and then it wouldn't work here at the hotel. So I'm going to sort of cheat and look at my phone here periodically, and hopefully that'll keep me on track. But I got a bunch of slides. I'm going to try and talk through them quickly, and hopefully we can make this more conversational. Scott noted, my name is Tom Michels. I'm the Director of Government Affairs based in Washington, D.C. with United Airlines. I'd also like to introduce 2 of my colleagues with United that are here. Mike Acosta is with our corporate real estate group, and Evan Kopel, who is with our sales organization. And I may defer all of my hard questions to those 2 because they definitely have the expertise. In my role, I primarily lobby the executive branch agencies, but I also lobby Capitol Hill. And my 2 big focus areas are sustainability and workforce development. And it's been a fantastic couple of years to work in both fields with United. When I came in, United was going great guns in 2018. It was an incredible time for the airlines. And then it was an incredible time for the airlines during the COVID pandemic. And, the company contracted dramatically. Very, very difficult time for us all, and certainly for the Dulles community writ large. We were close to we were basically at about 93,000 employees in 2019, and then we contracted dramatically to less than 70,000. And today, one of the things I'm most pleased about is that we are once again back up to 93,000 employees, and we have actually expanded our footprint here in Virginia to over 7,000 employees. We grew by 18%. We hired about 18,000 people last year. We hope to hire roughly that same number in this year to come. So thank God for that. You know who we are. We're a big airline. We move people and cargo. We move them all around the world. We have really an unparalleled international network, and we are growing. So this United Next is the sort of name brand we've given to our plan to expand, and it's the core of it is we're buying a bunch of new airplanes, basically about 700 over the next 10 years. Most of them are narrow-body aircraft, but we also placed the largest order for wide-body aircraft in history for any U.S. airline. We'll talk a little bit more about that. We we are growing in lots of ways. We're adding gates at our hub airports. I should have mentioned that our key hubs are Newark, Dulles, Chicago, Denver, Houston, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and Guam. And our high growth airports, including Denver and Newark and Dulles, are all getting some new gates, so that's exciting. Marty mentioned we've hired a lot of people. Training is a big deal. When you have that many new people coming into a company, you gotta have them trained. We have pretty intensive in-house training. We train our pilots at a flight training center in Denver. We've expanded that greatly. It's a wonderful tour if you're ever able to cajole yourself onto one of those and get out to Denver. It's really an amazing place to see, and they've got more than 40 flight simulators that are just incredible, and that's where our pilots go for recurrent training and for their initial training. And then we also just completed a more than $30 million expansion of our in-flight training center for our flight attendants. It's great stuff. And these are the new aircraft that we're buying. So in 2021, we announced this order for about 500 narrow body aircraft, mostly MAX 10s, but also some A321s and some MAX 8s. And then just last year, we announced this order for 100 new 787 Dreamliners with an option to buy another 100 as well. Very, very exciting stuff. Just finding the parking space for all those aircraft is going to entail some new gates, and we certainly will need new people to fly them all. And it's going to be, of course, a much improved customer experience. It does make a difference when you're in a brand new aircraft or in a more mature, drawn down of the air. As some of our aircraft are as well. And just, we're expanding. I'm sure Evan can speak to this much more eloquently than I can, but our Polaris seating and our first class seating is going to be expanding. We're going to have a lot more of those premium seats, and it really is a fantastic product. So stay tuned, and you should hopefully see it. It's a little bit about, I should have mentioned what I'm going to talk about. I want to tell one about United, two about United in Virginia, three about our sustainability work, and four about our workforce development initiatives. So that's sort of the order of things. I'm going to skip around a little bit through these, but just talking about our footprint in Virginia, what a fantastic growth story we have here. We are currently at around 260 flights a day in and out of Dulles, and we are hoping to bump that up significantly to more than 300. At the time of the pandemic, we were in that same sort of position, and our CEO said publicly that he hoped to get to about 500 flights a day, and then the pandemic happened and we got to less than that. But we are growing substantially, and I think that you'll all be excited with the new destinations that we're serving. We're turning Dulles into a significant north-south connecting hub. We're taking a lot of the flights that used to go to places like Newark, and we're moving them down to Dulles, and we're connecting through here. It's less congested airspace. There's a great amount of runways here. We have a fantastic working relationship with MWA. We view Jack Potter and his team here as being fantastic stewards of the airport, and we're delighted to work with them. It's a great place to do business. You all know Virginia is a great place to do business, and we're excited to be here. We've been here for more than 30 years, and we want to continue to grow that presence. One of the really exciting projects that's underway now, or we're starting to get underway, is the new Tier 2 East Concourse, 14 new gates there. That's going to replace Concourse A, and ultimately what that is the first step toward replacing, speaking of mature grand dames, Terminal CD, right? That will happen, I think, in phases as we move ahead, but as I mentioned, with all those aircraft coming in, we're going to need new facilities, new gates, and thank God we'll get a new terminal out there. Hopefully, in the next 10 to 15 years, assuming that traffic continues to grow. I think that's probably what I want to say here. So this is a little plug. We want to get you out of your seats and into ours and get you to fun and exciting places around the globe. This is just a snapshot of our international service that isn't offered by any other U.S. carriers in D.C. We obviously go to about to many more other international destinations. We serve 41, I think, today, international destinations, and about 113 domestic destinations from Dulles. And so I hope these pictures are sufficiently enticing that you will go home and book your flight to them. And one of the great things about Dulles is that it has enabled us to be the leading airline to Latin America. This is a market I expect that we'll see growing in the years to come here. Huge amount of growth there, huge amount of demand, and really like to serve it from our hub here in Washington Dulles. Switching gears abruptly, let's talk about sustainability. I know you want to go to all those places, but you also want to be nice to Mother Earth, and that is something that is near and dear to my own heart. It's also happily very much near and dear to our CEO's heart. He is a committed climate nerd. He will tell you to your face. He really geeks out on the data. He's very interested in it, very concerned. It's been a concern of his since he was in college. He's taken that personal passion and he's put it into, made it into part of our DNA as a company. And we strive to be the leaders in sustainability. And so we were the first company to establish a net zero goal, so that achieving net zero carbon emissions by 2050. But unlike most airlines, we have committed to doing that without reliance on voluntary carbon offsets. It's very hard to reduce your carbon emissions directly as an airline. You burn a ton of fuel. There isn't really many alternatives. There's no battery power that's going to be able to help you on a long haul flight. Unless we got rid of all of our passengers and replaced them with batteries, which is problematic from a profit standpoint. Electrification and long haul flight is not a thing. We're going to need to rely on some kind of liquid fuel. And so by and large, what we're trying to do is replace our current fossil liquid fuels with sustainable aviation fuels that are made from bioproducts or from renewable power, basically, or from municipal solid waste. And we're going to talk a little bit about that more. But our 100% green pledge is that we're going to do this without purchasing these offsets, where you're sort of paying a guy in Brazil not to cut down the rainforest, basically paying to avoid emissions that might otherwise occur. We tend to think that a lot of those emission reductions aren't quite real, and we want to reduce our own emissions in general. We don't like paying for offsets. Most companies don't. You want to pay for something that's actually in your operational control and making a direct impact. And that's we're making a ton of investments to that end. This is our basic philosophy: reduce, innovate, remove, collaborate. So we want to reduce the CO2 via low carbon sustainable aviation fuel. Sustainable aviation fuel is chemically indistinguishable from fossil-based fuel at the end of the day. It's got to be jet fuel, it's got to work in our engines, it's got to work with the existing infrastructure. But the feedstocks that you make it from are different. So it's not coming from crude oil, which goes into a refinery. It's coming from things like used cooking oil or beef tallow, chicken fats, beef fats. Fats, oils, and greases are currently what we use today, FOGs for short. And those fats and oils, and sometimes even vegetable oils, go into a refinery largely the same as oil goes through a refinery. And at the end of it, you get this product that is, again, chemically indistinguishable from ordinary jet fuel. So the emissions that happen when you actually burn it are the same. But the emissions on the front end are very different, and you're avoiding a lot of emissions by using bioproducts instead of jet fuel. There are other ways that we hope to be able to make jet fuel in the very near future. If you have a ton of renewable power, you can take that power, you can use it to make hydrogen. You take that hydrogen and you smush it with catalyst and high pressure, high temperature environments. I'm using technical terms like smush it. But that process ultimately results in a very low carbon jet fuel. Right now it's very technically challenging to do. There aren't really many companies doing this. Excuse me. In fact, there's only 2 companies in the world currently making sustainable aviation fuel at commercial scale, Neste and World Energy, which is based in California. We currently buy fuel from both of them. We buy more sustainable aviation fuel than any other airline. We have more offtake agreements for future offtake than any other airline. In fact, we have nearly half of all publicly announced offtake agreements for sustainable aviation fuel belong to United. But all that together, it's less than 1% of all the fuel that we use today. We use about 4 billion gallons of jet fuel each year at United. And we have a lot farther to go in reducing that carbon associated with that footprint. 98% of our emissions come from the combustion of jet fuel. Everything else, all the stuff that we own around Dulles and all our other airports, our big offices in Chicago, all the people that are driving around on United Business, that's all part of our footprint. All of that, all the ground support equipment that we run at airports, all of that adds up to 2% of our emissions. Everything else is jet fuel combustion. So we really have to get around that problem. We're trying to innovate. So we have a venture fund. It's called United Airlines Ventures. It's sort of like an in-house venture capital firm that goes around and takes equity stakes in exciting new startups. We try to get in early on promising technology that could literally change the way that we do business. Again, we don't want to offset our emissions. We want to revolutionize the way we fly. And so that's a picture right there of one of the new electric aircraft that we're investing in. I sort of poo-pooed electric aircraft as a means of transporting people on long-haul flights, but we are very serious about it with regard to short-haul flights. That particular one is a market that we do not currently serve. This would be basically an air taxi. I think that's a picture of Archer's aircraft. And Archer is looking to basically get people from their homes to the airport. So if you have an airport that is kind of far out from the city center like Dulles, people don't want to take that Silver Line ride out there, this is basically going to be like an Uber that you can call and it will fly you out there. It's electric, zero emissions, gets you there very fast, and is actually, so they tell us, going to be cost competitive with like an Uber Black, roughly the same cost. It gets you there a lot faster. But we are doing small regional jets with a company called Hard Aerospace that will be electrified. We're investing in direct air capture. That's where you literally have machines that suck carbon dioxide out of the air, make it into a pure stream, and then it is sequestered underground. For us, that's what, if people are into carbon capture here, I don't know if you guys are energy geeks like me, but if you have a power plant, they are taking the effluent from the power plant directly, the exhaust, and they're splitting out the carbon dioxide from that, and they're going to put that underground. That's part of carbon capture with power plant. You can't do that on a jet engine. So our post-combustion capture is capturing it directly from the air and putting it underground. Very, very expensive to do, but we're all going to have to do it, right, to get our hands around climate change. That's the removal thing. Remove CO2 directly from the atmosphere, and that picture there is of one of those machines. We were part of a project in South Texas that is now, it's called 1.5. It's mostly owned by Occidental Petroleum, but they're going to be taking that CO2 and putting it into underground formations to pull it out of the air. And collaboration. The collaboration part is mostly what I do. I'm a lobbyist. I go to Capitol Hill and I say, we're doing all this cool stuff. It's very expensive. There does need to be some public support for this activity. Sustainable aviation fuel is anywhere from 2 to 4 times as expensive as jet fuel. We need policies in place that make that more economically viable. And I'm pleased to say that last year, with the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act, they included the first ever tax credit for sustainable aviation fuel consumption. And I was a part of that process and very proud of it. At the state level, we just saw that Illinois passed a sustainable aviation fuel tax credit of $1.50 a gallon. Extremely important to our efforts. We won't be able to do it without those kinds of public policy measures in place. California has a low carbon, LCFS, low carbon, momentarily blanked on what the S is, which is crazy because I work with the LCFS all the time. But, but the California low carbon fuel standard is one of the most important drivers of investment into green technologies. These are all important steps. This is basically our strategy. And we have a long history of firsts. We were into this before it was cool. We were the first airline to do a SAF demonstration back in 2009. We were the first airline to put into place a offtake agreement for sustainable aviation fuel. We made the largest investment of any airline at any time, $30 million into Fulcrum Bioenergy that's going to make sustainable aviation fuel from garbage. That their first plant just started production. We invested in 2015 and they just started producing this year, small amounts. Let's hope it keeps going, it gets bigger. We did the first flight, demonstration flight on 100% SAF. The FAA is still antsy that is this fuel really the same as jet fuel? And we did a demonstration flight with passengers that went from Chicago to DCA just last year. I got a picture of that later. It was very exciting for me. I already kind of talked about SAF. I maybe just will skip over this, but this gives you a sense of what's distinct, right? It's instead of unsequestering carbon, right, by drilling the oil out of the ground, we are sequestering it into these natural products and avoiding a lot of emissions in the process. This is something that's we just announced a few weeks ago. It's called the Sustainable Flight Fund. And basically, I mentioned that we have this internal venture capital firm with United Airlines Ventures. The Sustainable Flight Fund is sort of an offshoot of that, where basically we are giving companies that invest with us access to our pipeline. So we have some of the best investors in renewable energy in the world working for United. We're very, very proud of our team. And they have gone out and they have identified hundreds of investment prospects that are in this field, everything from sodium-ion batteries to carbon capture to sustainable aviation fuel to innovative materials that will be going into aircraft. And other companies have demonstrated their confidence in our judgment on this, and this fund was just launched with $100 million with our anchor investors, 5 other companies, Air Canada, Chase Bank, Boeing, Goldman Sachs, GE Aviation, all signaled their confidence in our ability to make good calls on this. And so they have given us their money, basically, to invest, and they will hopefully we will all earn a profit from these investments, while also launching the new technologies, the startups that are going to really make a difference and help us get our arms around this problem and decarbonize aviation. These are some of the policies that I mentioned. This is the stuff that I work on every day. Our biggest priorities, SAF, carbon capture, and hydrogen, were all recognized and acknowledged in the Inflation Reduction Act. That is far and away the most meaningful climate change legislation that has been passed in the world to date. Much more investment going to be driven by that than by anything that's happened in the European Union. It was a big step, a big deal for the United States. We're very proud of it. State and local policies are also crucial. And there are even a lot of international agreements. I spend a lot of time dealing with our friends at ICAO, the International Civil Aviation Organization, basically the wing of the UN that deals with aviation. And they also have a global emissions reduction regime called CORSIA, the Carbon Offsetting and Reduction Scheme for International Aviation. It would blister paint it so boring to read, but it is very important to our business and to our ability to manage emissions internationally without having kind of a patchwork of mandates to deal with in every different country. This is the picture of our aircraft that flew on 100% SAF. That's all of us lined up on the tarmac over at DCA. And if you look real carefully, you can see me grinning over there on the right side.
Oh, yeah,
I'm sorry, on the left side. The good-looking guy.
Standing.
So if I could switch gears, this is actually my kind of favorite topic right now, workforce development. We are doing some really cool things. As I mentioned, we're hiring great guys, super important. Hiring people, giving them a chance to work is life-changing, right? For all of us, work is sort of what we do, and it's critical for United, and we have now an extremely large workforce, almost 100,000 people, and growing fast. The constraints on our growth are, the biggest constraints on our growth are twofold: number of pilots, number of mechanics who work on the aircraft. Right? Those are the two big things. It's really hard to become a pilot. It takes a long time. You need it's a highly skilled job, as you all probably know. We have a program that we're calling Aviate. And Aviate is sort of an umbrella initiative that describes a number of different things. One, it's sort of our ordinary recruiting from partner universities. Some you've heard of, like Embry-Riddle. But we're also targeting a lot of universities that have started aviation programs. Hampton University in Virginia, Delaware State University, Elizabeth State University. So those are all partner universities with United. And we take those students that come out of there and we bring them into the United family. We do some training with them as they go up through the regional airlines, and so which is sort of our minor leagues, if you will, where we hire all our pilots from. And we help them get their hours in. We also help them work as flight instructors to get those hours that they need, 1,500 hours of flight time before you're allowed to pilot commercial aircraft. And there's sort of a lot of bottlenecks in that process. And so we started our own flight school. We're not involved flight school in Arizona. It's called the United Aviate Academy, just outside of Phoenix, beautiful place. And we now have some 260 kids they're not all kids, young people that are enrolled over there, and we are working with them. They spend a year at the United Aviate Academy, and when they come out of that, they have not only their private pilot's license, but they get 7 certifications, their instrumentation, and they are certified flight instructors. And they stay at the United Aviate Academy as employees, as certified flight instructors for the United Aviate Academy. That helps them get their hours. In the past, a lot of what people did to get their hours is go to the beach and fly those banners back and forth across the beach, right? There's better ways to keep them, keep the safety culture inculcated in our pilots. Keeping them there, they develop leadership skills, they work with other students, they teach them what they know, and they get their hours. and then they can go and work for one of our regional subsidiary airlines, and then they come hopefully and work for United. It's a fantastic process. Commercial airline pilots, you know, when you're in the left seat of the cockpit and you're flying international flights, you are making a lot of money. You're making substantially more than I do today. These are great jobs. You get to see the world. You get a enviable work schedule. They're absolutely fantastic, and it's truly a life-changing event to do that. We think that diversifying the cockpit is an important goal just because it's the right thing to do. It's almost all white males today. So we think it's crucial that people of color move into the cockpit. We also think it's critical that women move into the cockpit. It's also a business imperative. The ordinary places where we were recruiting our pilots, the military being one of the huge sources, just are not churning out as many pilots as they did in the past. And so we need to have new sources of talent. One of the key places that we're recruiting from now are women's athletic programs in universities and high schools. As it turns out, you can learn a lot of things. You know, we can teach you everything you need to know about altitude and vectors and points of entry. What you can't really teach people is coordination and spatial awareness. This is why I will never be a pilot. I can't walk through a door frame without bonking my shoulder on it. But to be a pilot, you need to have basic spatial awareness. You need to have coordination. And those skills are something that college athletes and high school athletes have in spades. It's really our focus now. We're really focusing on women's athletics programs to try and meet our goals of having at least 50% of our new hires in aviation should be women or people of color, and it's something we're really gritting our teeth on. The other key area is our mechanics program. So I mentioned that we have about 8,500 aviation maintenance technicians today working for us. Those are our mechanics that work on aircraft. To become an aircraft mechanic, is not easy. Also, highly technical skill. You don't usually need a college degree, but you do need a license. You need your airframe and power plant licenses. These are actually two separate certifications. They're FAA regulated, commonly known as your A&P license. Typically, the way you get an A&P license, you go to a technical school, either a community college that would have these programs in place, or more commonly, some of these for-profit schools. Some of them you may have heard of, the Aviation Institute of Maintenance, the Pittsburgh Institute of Aerospace, I think is what it is. Two big schools that have campuses around the country. They churn out a lot of these folks. They're expensive. It costs about $50,000 to $70,000, and it takes at least 12 to 18 months to finish. And when you get that, you still don't know beans about working on a commercial aircraft, because most of those programs, the FAA exam that you have to pass to get your A&P license is much more geared towards general aviation, small aircraft, small engines. It is not geared towards big jet aircraft like we fly. So then we take those folks that have their A&P license and we spend a lot of time training them. We're trying to grow. We need more of them. Currently, more than 50% of our current crop of aviation maintenance technicians are eligible to retire. So we have a severe kind of draining of the workforce problem confronting us. We need new people, we need them fast, and we need to get them trained up as quickly as we can. So we've launched something that we call Calibrate. So we have Aviate, this is Calibrate. Aviate's for the pilots, Calibrate is for the maintenance technicians. And Calibrate is our in-house apprenticeship program that we are hoping will grow and also diversify our workforce of technicians. And it takes 36 months to get through the Calibrate program. But we're taking folks that are right out of high school that have no experience or little experience. Currently, we're hiring them from lower level, entry level maintenance technician jobs that you will have here at Dulles, Chicago, at all of our hubs, and a number of our line stations. And they will spend 36 months with us as employees. Their title is apprentice. They're being paid handsomely for this, and they're learning. They do 300 hours of classroom time each year, and the rest of it is on-the-job training, where they work directly with a mentor, a journeyman mechanic, who is teaching them all that he or she knows, and they spend the next 36 months with that person, learning everything, watching them do what they need to do, and they sit at the end of that and they get their A&P license. They have to go through an oral and practical exam where you demonstrate your skills.